It's time for the Kim Hammer Show, where you'll learn how your state government affects you, your family, and community. Here's Kim Hammer.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome to the Kim Hammer Show on what is now a beautiful Saturday afternoon. Got to watch the weather this evening. Some dicey weather moving into certain parts of the state. So please just be careful and watch the weather. And we want to continue to be mindful of our friends up in Jonesboro and also Harrisburg this past week that was hit by a tornado. Just want to keep them in our thoughts and prayer. Let's start today by remembering who our sponsors are of our show. First of all, I want to thank Everett Buick GMC down in Saline County there at I-30 and the Alcoa Overpass. Those folks will give you a great deal on a vehicle if you go down there, but also they'll provide you great service afterwards. They take care of you from the beginning to the end. If you got a good quality used car that you're looking to trade in, it's a great time to do that now. And with the packages that are coming down from the federal government, hopefully some of y'all getting your tax returns, it'd be a great time for you to go down and shop at Everett Buick GMC. They can take care of you on all those GMC products. Also want to give a shout out to Baxley Phillips Mowdy Real Estate. They can take care of all your real estate needs here in Central Arkansas, including commercial, residential, and also rental, both on the commercial and the residential side. So give the folks down at Baxley Phillips Mowdy a call down there in Saline County, like I said, on Spring Hill Road and Highway 5, and they will take care of you. And then also Edwards Food Stores. Want to remember that they keep their stores well stocked. They keep them clean. They keep their prices competitive. Their meats are great. Their fresh produce is great. They've got great delis. If you go in there and you want to grab breakfast or lunch, in fact, they will serve it about as cheap as you can buy it and fix it and take it home. So go by and check out their delis and keep them in your prayers as well. They have a store in Harrisburg that was hit by the tornado. Fortunately, their store was not hit. Their employees were kept safe, but that is kind of their parent company. And let's just remember those folks up there as they continue to recover from the tornado. And if you want to join in tomorrow, as you know, I pastor Saline Baptist Church down in Tull, and we've been using 101.1 FM and the Facebook Live feature here to present our worship services. And I'll be on the air again tomorrow at noon. And the message is going to be entitled Hope When the World Says that It's Hopeless. Hope when the world says it's hopeless, because this is Easter weekend, the weekend that we pause to recognize the death of Jesus Christ, our Lord and Savior. But we don't just focus on the death because we focus on the resurrection. Because of his resurrection, we have the hope of eternal life. So we know that we're going to be distanced as far as being able to join together as congregations, but that doesn't mean we can't be in unison in one spirit as we celebrate the resurrection of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, tomorrow. So tune in to your favorite broadcast. And if you like, you can tune in here tomorrow at noon, and we'll have the message on hope when the world says it's hopeless. On our show today, we have Senator Boozman joining us by way of phone. And then in the second half, we're going to have Secretary of Commerce Mike Preston here in the state of Arkansas will be joining us on the second half of the show. But let's get started, first of all, with Senator Boozman. And do we have you on the line, Senator Boozman?
I'm here, and I appreciate your the lead-in talking about your message of hope. And certainly, as you point out, the great hope is the death and the resurrection that we celebrate during this very, very special time.
Thank you, sir. And let me just mention, I wanted to give a personal shout out if the audience would just park it on the side for a minute. I want to speak to the quality of Senator Boozman before we go into the questions. First of all, you hosted the Boys and Girls Clubs of Arkansas about a month ago. You met my daughter, Kayla, and she was very complimentary of the way you greeted them and took care of them. So I want to say on a personal level, appreciate that very much.
Be sure and tell her I said hi, and she represented the group so very well. You can be, I know you're very proud of her and should be. She's a sweet little young lady.
All right, so here's what Donald Trump said about you back on April 4th. It says, he said, in addition to our courageous doctors, nurses, and healthcare workers, I also want to thank the incredible food supply workers who are feeding our nation. I just spoke a little while ago with Senator Boozman. You know Senator Boozman. We all do. He's a great senator. He's a great person. We spoke just this morning, and we discussed how important it is to keep our farmers and ranchers, processors, and distributors in our nation's prayers. And I want to thank the senator for the incredible job he's doing, and a lot of senators and congressmen and everybody is working hard. So you come with high marks from our president, which I think speaks to your quality, sir.
Well, I appreciate that. I'm just glad he said nice things about me. I was visiting with him about how important it was to recognize those on the front lines. We point to the doctors and nurses, all of our healthcare providers. Sometimes we forget the people that are still in the grocery stores and on the front lines in the processing plants and all of those kind of things that are doing an incredible job, really at risk to their health. So we do need to keep them in our prayers, and we certainly need to appreciate them and make them feel like we understand the great job that they're doing. So the president has really been talking a lot about that, and so we do appreciate that. I think the greatest fear that people have is going into the grocery store and nothing being in there. And so because of the work of all of that group, our farmers and ranchers and all the way through the chain, all of that's holding up pretty well right now. So that's a good thing.
That was one thing we had on the show last week. I had Charlie Spakes with the Arkansas Retailers and Groceries Association on, and he was talking about the supply chain is fine and the supplies themselves are fine. Was talking about people panic buying and just hoarding up things, and that if everybody would just kind of go about business as usual, that everything will be okay.
Yes, you're exactly right, and that's so important. We don't have the big warehouses that we used to keep things with with the delivery systems that we have now, on time delivery. It's very, very efficient. It works really well. Our warehouses now are the trucks on the road. But if we buy too much, then again it breaks down. So I really do appreciate you mentioning that, and would encourage our listeners, if they'll continue to get what they need, then we're going to be in very, very good shape.
Well, let me get into a few questions with you, Senator. The recent CARES package has had many updates as far as how it would be implemented at the state level, and I think if my sources are right, that bill drafted in about 24 hours once it kind of gelled together. So it was put together pretty quick. Can you give us an update on the key components of the bill and what has been officially developed and passed down to the state? How is it actually playing out, coming down to the state, and what are some of the key components that you see?
Well, the bill itself, and you can appreciate this, you talk about it, you talk policy and this and that, and then you have to write it down. And that came together very, very quickly. The reason being is the feeling was the longer that you waited, the more people that didn't have any financial resources, any hope, then the bigger the problem becomes, and the cost is even greater. So there's a number of things in the bill. You can imagine it's $2.2 trillion, which is an unimaginable sum. But things like vaccine dollars, getting that squared away, trying to figure out a treatment for this. $1.25 billion came directly to the state of Arkansas. So money was divvied out to the states to help them in the support of battling really two things, the disease and then also the tremendous threat to our economy. Yesterday, the hospitals in Arkansas got $326.5 million. There's $100 billion set aside for them. I was on a call yesterday with Sima Verde regarding what's going to happen with the dollars in the future. This was a portion of the money. She assured us and several other senators that the next tranche would be dedicated primarily to rural community hospitals, which desperately need our help. Support for the state health department. There was also dollars in there for higher education. They're suffering greatly now because of having to shut down like everybody else. The payroll protection program that were implemented to help businesses stay afloat. These are loans that they can apply for through their banks, which goes through the Small Business Administration. And it's 2.5 times payroll. And this allows them, if the dollars are used for rent and payroll, interest on mortgages, overhead expenses, then those loans are actually forgiven. So it's a very, very good program. Also, soon the individual checks will start coming out. Each individual is going to get $1,200, $2,400 a couple, $500 for children. And this is not a stimulus program. It's a survival program. There's so many people that simply are not working, and as a result of that are not drawing a check. And so this is an effort so they can continue to make that car payment, make the rent payment, and then buy food their families. So this is all about trying to protect families and communities.
Let me ask you, just to give the listeners a little bit of a comprehension about how the process works. So, I mean, the COVID situation started coming on around the first of the year, but, there was the process of trying to determine how worldwide it was going to be. Was it going to be contained just to China, et cetera? And then as that thing picked up as it picked up speed and kind of began to be a snowball, we had to react as far as the impact it was going to have, not only upon the physical health of people, but also the financial impact that it was going to have to our economy. And so talk about the process of when it was that as senators and congressmen with the president, that you began to realize that you were going to have to put together an economic package, because even though you passed the bill, is there still the process of how that translates in all that coming down? It's not like you gave $1.2 billion to the state of Arkansas, said, here, go spend it however you want. There were connections, there were strings that come down. So could you just talk about the process a little bit and how it actually gets down to Arkansas?
Well, it's really written in such a way that it's pretty broad and gives a lot of authority to the to Treasury. What we tried to do was use existing structures, because if we tried to set up a new program at the federal level, or if you tried to set up a new program at the state level, it takes months and months. I think the average time frame at the federal level is a year to 18 months. So, we didn't have that kind of time. So what we did was we worked through the Treasury, we worked through small business, we're working through the banks, things that are already set up in order to get these dollars out as fast as they can. I'm hearing from individuals that they're starting to receive the PPP program, again, the payroll protection program, that those dollars, that they're actually starting to receive those, which is a good thing. We've had problems with that because of just the sheer traffic. It is a very popular program, and your listeners need to understand, too, that we're going to replenish that program. The president is very much in support of that. Congress is in support. We just need to work out the details. So all of this, though, is tied, though, towards a relationship to the COVID virus. But it is written in such a way that it's broad enough that sometimes things are, indirectly related. But I think that very soon there's going to be, we've already had significant dollars come down, but we're going to see a lot more dollars in the near future.
It's my understanding that this past week y'all were, and I think you just alluded to it, that there's actually another bill being developed, and the wrangling that goes on in order for that to, come into completion. But I'm under the impression that another bill was under development this week, but it unraveled. Do you, as far as the reason for why it unraveled, or the give and take that has to go on between, the respective parties, can you speak to that, and also about what the future bill may be looking like that would be coming in the future?
Well, because of the popularity of this program, the dollars going out so very rapidly, there's concern that the program will run out of money. So originally set up with $350 billion, which is a lot of money, but probably half of that, at least, I haven't checked today, but a lot of it's being obligated already with lots of people in line. So in an effort to shore that up, the Secretary of the Treasury and the President were in agreement, I think, most members in Congress are in agreement that we need to provide additional dollars for that. So the idea was to add another $250 billion. And literally the bill was, it consisted of crossing out 350 and putting 600, adding $250 billion. That was the extent of the bill. Very simple. The Democrats still came back and said, well, we want these other things. And they really were in relation to other problems in the economy that we all agree are a problem. But the dollars that we've already allocated have not anywhere near been spent regarding those programs. So the idea is to wait and see, exactly where we're going to need to provide additional funds, not providing additional funds when you haven't even spent anywhere near the dollars that have already been allocated. So we'll get it done eventually. As you know better than anybody, these things are give and take. But at the end of the day, I think that for those listeners that are concerned about the fund running out of money, I believe there's a real commitment. Certainly there's a commitment by myself and the rest of the Arkansas delegation. I can speak for all of us to make sure that those dollars will be there when their loans are finally approved.
The with so much debt piling up, I mean, $2.2 trillion is just kind of blows the average citizen's mind. It probably blows a lot of our minds, to be honest with you. But how do we see ourselves coming out from underneath this financial hit that we've taken because of the pandemic? And could you speak to, what some of the trade-offs are? We're going to do $2.2 trillion and another package coming down. And how does that measure against if we just sat back and did nothing, and what would have been the hit to the economy? Can you speak to the rationale of how you can justify a $2.2 trillion package plus what's coming down the line?
No, and that really is a great question. And right now, as we mentioned earlier, we're truly at war with the coronavirus, and then the economic fallout of that, not only in our country, in other words, here domestically, but this is a worldwide phenomenon. We've never been in this situation before, where literally the entire world's economy is shut down, and so it's a huge problem. What we've done is trying to target the dollars that we're spending towards fighting the virus and economic relief. So it is very, very targeted. And it's an effort, as I said earlier, this isn't stimulus. This is just shoring things up so that once this is over, once people are allowed to go back to work, once businesses are allowed to reopen in full force, then we'll have businesses to go back to. And really, I'm very concerned about the federal government. I'm also very concerned about our state government, our municipalities, our counties. They're in the same situation. Right now, there simply is no tax base because there are no sales going on. And with no sales going on, that they don't have any tax base. So I know in talking to our county judges, our mayors, certainly Governor Hutchinson is doing a great job leading us. And Nate Smith at the Department of Health also is doing a very good job. But there's nobody that's going to escape this. And so I'm sure the state is going to be spending a lot of money in this direction that they didn't expect to. And then along with that is going to have a lot less money coming in. We're going to be in the same way at the federal government. So at some point, we're going to have to deal with that. I think you have to go back, though, as far as the situation that we're getting to World War II to have any kind of comparison at all. So this is a national emergency, and as a result, it's an extraordinary time. I think it requires extraordinary reactions, really, at every level of government.
Is there any talk about holding China responsible for their part of the pandemic? Even this week in our legislature, there was some there was an introduction of a bill to kind of punish China as far as what we do as a state economically with China. And is there any talk as far as holding them accountable for how they contributed to this? And could you just speak on that subject? Because that's one thing I hear people talk about is why would we not want to hold them accountable? And I know that's walking kind of a tightrope in maintaining a relationship with a significant trade partner because we do so much trade with them. But how do you balance that subject?
No, I think that is the key, is balance. And certainly, as the virus developed there, then they downplayed it. They did recognize the fact. They denied the fact that it was transmitted person to person, and they knew they had a big problem on their hands. Allowed their people to continue to travel outside of the country and spread it. The Chinese government, not the Chinese people, but the Chinese government, lies, cheats, steals, and manipulates. It's just they don't play by the rules. And that's why the president campaigned on, I campaigned on, all of us campaigned on, getting tough with China, making them, abide by the same rules, not steal all of our intellectual property, not do all of the things that they do in that regard. And so the president, through the tariffs and things, got tough, and really, we were really moving in the right direction in that regard. So I think we're going to have to reevaluate. One of the most important things that we've learned, though, and all of us knew, that we were in this situation to some extent, but I don't think anybody realized how dependent we were in regard to medicines. Most of the medicines that we take are either made in China, or the components are made and then shipped to the United States and then formulated here. So that's a huge dependence that we need to get straight in the future. Also, the personal protective equipment that we've been so short of, again, almost all of that is made in China. So that's just examples. There's a number of things that really are for the benefit of national security. We've got to reevaluate and then provide some incentives that the United States starts manufacturing these things, and so we're not dependent. On the other hand, China is such a huge country, and they buy a lot of stuff, and certainly our farmers and ranchers and so many others are dependent on selling things overseas. 40% of the agricultural products produced in Arkansas are shipped overseas. They're exported. So we need markets. We need additional markets. We're always looking to protect rural America. And so that's the key, is like you say, is a balance. But I do think that once things settle down and we get back to normal and can actually look at things, that we're going to hopefully learn the lesson in lots of different ways.
I would hope that we would, bring more of those businesses back home. That could be part of a package in the future, is to give businesses incentives to come back. We've only got about 1 or 2 minutes, and I really appreciate your time. But let me ask you this last question, if you can, in about a minute and a half, answer it. One of the things that employers have been expressing to me is that the unemployment portion of the CARES package has just created an incentive for people not to want to work. In fact, I had one employer that told me that their employees came to them and said, hey, we want the equivalent, or we're going to go home, and kind of left them in a hostage situation. In a minute, can you talk about that situation as far as what the future looks like? Because that is a problem to the employers with regard to the employees being paid more to stay home than actually come to work.
No, it is a problem. And we're looking at massive unemployment. People say up to 30%. When you have a situation where people, when they want to work, you mentioned some others that were working with jobs that were necessary or whatever. But when you've got other people that want to work that simply can't go, or you've got many, many, many businesses that simply can't afford to have them around anymore. And so as a result, they're unemployed. I think the businesses need to understand and remember that in order to draw unemployment, the people have to be fired. In other words, they have to have a reason. They can't just quit and then go down and draw unemployment. The business has to fire them. And if there's a need, then, like I say, they're not eligible. The other thing is that this is a 4-month program to get us through this part. So it is short term, but you want to balance things. And so the unemployment benefit is generous. It will get people hopefully by. But we're in a very, very difficult situation.
Senator Boozman, I'm about to cut off for the bottom of the hour. Could you hold on for just a minute, or if you need to go, I totally understand that, and we'll just...
No, I can hold on. Sure.
All right, we'll come back. Thank you.
Take The Answer with you anywhere with our free mobile app, 1011FMTheAnswer.com. Tune in, iHeart, or radio.com. Breaking news and stimulating talk. 101.1 FM, The Answer.
Hey, it's Dave Ellswick. You know, cost is the biggest reason most of you don't check into private and Christian schools for your kids. And we want to change that. We've got partnerships with schools all over the area that's offering half price, that's right, half price, 50% off their tuition. See the complete list of schools at dealsforlittlerock.com. For more information, call Lynn at 501-404-6545.
At PI Roofing, our only goal is to properly care for every customer, past, present, and future. In these difficult times we all face, don't let your roof be your concern. Let us take care of that for you, and you will have one less thing to worry about. Contact us today at 707-3551 or piroofing.com and let us know Dave said to call. When we help our clients succeed, we succeed as well. With today's technology, PI Roofing is able to offer state-of-the-art video communication to keep everyone safe. We're turning this crisis into an opportunity by coming up with new ways to connect with our customers to help them solve their problems. Don't let your roof be a concern. Whatever it is, just contact us and we'll do our very best for you. We offer emergency assistance, flexible payment options, video conferencing, non-invasive appointments, express production times, and peace of mind. During the coronavirus pandemic, we are adjusting the way we do business. Contact us today at 707-3551 or piroofing.com and let us know Dave said to call.
Welcome back to the Kim Hammer Show. Before we get back to our interview with Senator Boozman, and we'll be joined by Secretary of Commerce for the state of Arkansas, Mike Preston, here in just a minute. And we're actually going to make some adjustments thanks to the graciousness of Senator Boozman, who's going to stay on, and we're going to merge Mike into the conversation, and we're going to have a three-way conversation about what the future looks like with regards to the infrastructure bill that's coming down. So hang on. But let me recognize my sponsors, because without them, we couldn't have these quality shows like this today. I want to thank Everett Buick GMC down in Saline County there on I-30 at Elkoa Exit. It's actually a great time to go buy a car, believe it or not. I know there's some shakeups in the economic situation, but we are going to come out from underneath this, and it'd be a great time if you're thinking about buying a new car with the incentive packages that they have. They're going to do you right. Then also Baxley Phillips Mowdy is a real estate firm down there that you can call for all your real estate needs in Central Arkansas. They can take care of your commercial, residential, every aspect of it. Give them a call, Baxley Phillips Mowdy. And then Edwards Food Stores here in Central Arkansas and also over in East Arkansas. And remember the folks up in Harrisburg, which is kind of where their main store is. It is they got hit by the tornado last weekend. We want to remember them and the folks up in Jonesboro while they're recovering. Kind of a dual whammy. They're dealing with the COVID virus, but also they're dealing with Mother Nature. And so remember them. And then also let's not forget that this is the weekend that we pause to celebrate the resurrection of Jesus Christ. We celebrate it every Sunday, but this is a weekend that we set aside in order to be able to thank the Lord for the fact that he was willing to come on the cross, or come and to give his life sacrificially on the cross so that we can have the gift of eternal life by asking him to come into our hearts, forgive us of our sins, and give us the gift of eternal life. And tomorrow at noon, the sermon I'll be preaching on behalf of the church I pastor, Saline Baptist Church down in Tull, is going to be entitled Hope When the World Says It's Hopeless. So tune in tomorrow at noon. All right. I think Mike is calling in. We're going to go back to the senator and get Mike merged in on the conversation. And we're going to pick up on talking about, I want to go back to the small business side of things, Senator. And as I was saying before we took the break, some of the employers are a little bit frustrated because it seems like the employees receive more incentives to stay home than they do to actually show up and work. So can you talk about that part of the package again, and what would you say to the employers if you had them in the room as far as that subject matter? And then we'll bring Mike into the conversation.
No, that's really important, and certainly this is an issue that I've heard a lot about also. We do have a significant unemployment, problem, and Mike can talk about, one of the problems that we face is because of the situation that we're in. You have, maybe 1,000 usually drawing unemployment, and that has ballooned up to 30,000. And so as a result, things aren't set up to handle that volume. So I know that everybody's been working very, very hard to get that done. But most of the people that are in the situation of drawing unemployment now simply don't have a job because so many businesses, it doesn't matter really what you're doing right now, maybe the grocery business or whatever, but it doesn't matter what you're doing, you've been impacted tremendously. So as a result, the unemployment benefit is generous, but you have to be fired in order to draw that unemployment benefit. So if you're in a situation where you've got some health care insurance, if you walk away, you're going to lose that. Plus, you're not going to be eligible to draw unemployment. Like I say, you have to be terminated with reason, fired with reason, or you're simply not eligible.
Hey, one thing I want to point out is that if you're watching and you want to send in a question, you can do it on the live video section of the Facebook, and we'll get your question. Senator Boozman, we're going to send your staff this question so that they can answer it unless you want to take it on the air, and you can come back to me.
Yes,
but
sure.
The question that was sent in by a listener is, if someone owes a federal debt, will they receive the stimulus funds, or will that go toward the federal debt?
No. In other words, again, in an effort to get dollars out, we can't deal with all of those kind of things. So, no, there's no withholding. If you're behind on this or that, that's not going to be withheld. You're going to go ahead and get those dollars.
All right. Appreciate you answering that question. All right. We're going to be joined now by the Secretary of Commerce of Arkansas, Mike Preston. Mike, have we got you on the line?
I'm here, Senator. It's good to talk to you this morning.
Likewise. Thank you for
Hey, Mike.
I'll let
Thanks,
y'all.
Mike, so much for the great job you all are doing. We very much appreciate you all.
Well, thank you, Senator. I appreciate y'all's support. Y'all represent us so well in Washington, and we're trying to get the dollars out to folks as quickly as we can that you guys have sent down. So we certainly appreciate what you guys do for us.
Right. You might, Mike, address the we get questions about delay maybe in the unemployment process. I'm getting the same questions about the federal delay in regard to small business and the banks handling the loan program. And again, small business is a very small agency, had very little volume. Now all of a sudden, they're inundated, and all of that's being worked out. But I know you've got some similar problems that you're dealing with too.
We do, Senator, and it's just like you said, it's the volume. We were going from processing about, on average about 1,000 unemployment claims a week to the midweek when the president first announced the national emergency to have about 10,000. Then we grew the following week to 30,000, and then to 55,000. Right now we're sitting at about 132,000 Arkansans who have filed for unemployment claims in the last about 3.5 weeks, and we're still tallying in the numbers from this week ending later today. So just trying to absorb that volume has been a strain on the system, and our folks have been working literally around the clock to add additional capacity to our website to be able to process that. The good news is that's taken place. Now, if you go to our website, we can handle the additional capacity, and it'll take you what we're seeing is about average 7 to 10 minutes on the website to file for your unemployment claim. Now, if you call the hotline, it's going to probably take you a little bit longer because we do have limited lines available that folks can call and talk to, and people that are actually available to handle the calls. And what we're seeing is that, if there's an issue with your claim, you might have a past due claim or an overpayment or some type of discrepancy. Usually things we can work through fairly quickly, but they start to stack up because we have to have someone trained in UI to be able to answer it. And because we've had such a good economy the last, 7-8 years, we just haven't had the need for that many people trained at that level. So now we're trying to train people to get to that level to understand the UI issues. So we're making progress. Like I said, we've added the lines. We're able to work some glitches out in our system where it was trying to batch with the national system. And the issue there was that all other 49 states were trying to do so at the same time, and we were hitting a bottleneck. But we figured out workarounds for all of those, and each day it's getting a little bit better. But I know it still doesn't help those who are frustrated and trying to get a check, and we're doing our best that we can to try and get the funding out as quick as we can.
I will say one thing about Mike and his. Go ahead, Senator.
Well, I was just going to say that again, I appreciate that, Mike, in the sense that I think you all are truly doing a remarkable job with the hand that you're dealt. I mean, it's just a very difficult situation, and we're experiencing the same thing with various programs at the federal level. The volume is just, nobody could ever expect this. Based on like you say, the great economy that we've had. So, thank you.
I will say one thing about Mike and what you're trying to do, and that is that you've shifted a lot of employees from other job duties, as you were referencing a while ago. And I had a list I was trying to find about the number of employees that you actually have working on unemployment claims right now. Do you happen to know that number right off the top of your head?
Well, around the state, we had about 300. So we have our local workforce centers across the state, about 33 offices across the state. And those coupled with what we have in Little Rock, we have about just over 300. What we've done since then is within the Department of Commerce and within DWS, which is a division in Commerce, we've shifted about 80 additional people just to answer the phone lines. And so you had folks who were in DWS, but maybe were working on, TANF or another, area of expertise, or even with a completely different department within Commerce. So we've had folks from economic development, from insurance, from our finance team, who, our marketing team, who have now shifted, and we've set up a makeshift call center in the training space that we have available in our building. So we've shifted about 80 of those employees into the role of answering the phone, and we're trying to, now that we've got those 80 trained and they can handle those tier one calls that are coming in and walk you through how to do it, we're trying to train a handful of those to be more of a supervisor role, so they can answer the little bit more difficult questions if they're getting a kickback on a PIN or there's some discrepancy issue. We're trying to deputize some of these folks to have that supervisory role that they can answer those questions within those 80. And then we also have a third party we're contracting with to help us on IT and some additional call center support. They're actually being trained today, and we'll hopefully early next week have that set up as well. So, like I said, every day we're getting a little bit closer on alleviating some of those numbers. I think last week we were seeing about 300,000 calls per day to the hotline. That dropped by the end of last week down to 200,000. As of this week, we were down to about 100,000. So that number keeps to dwindling down, which is what we want to see, and we are still processing claims. So the system it's working, albeit slow, and I hope folks will bear with us there.
Well, and I've got about 15 minutes, so let me just kind of set the tone so we all three know how we want to go for the next 15 minutes. Mike, I want to ask you about a couple things, and then I'm going to ask you all a couple of questions that both of y'all can chime in. One of those questions that we're going to get to in a minute is about the combination of the state benefits with the federal benefits, the things that were already in place from the state level. Like, for example, Mike, we had $870 million in the unemployment fund, but the things that are coming down with the federal and how those things merge. But then we'll finish up our time by talking about the infrastructure package that is coming down, that I think President Trump is working with the Congress on, and how that looks and how that would apply to Arkansas. But as you were talking, Mike, and I was thinking about, with us having gone through transformation under the leadership of Governor Hutchinson and legislators this last time around, the flexibility that in order to respond to the situation we've got now, how that transformation has actually helped to make that happen so that people could be more fluid and move back and forth across the what would have been previously siloed walls. Can you speak on that just a second?
Yeah, absolutely. And very appreciative, Senator Hammer, to you and to the General Assembly for passing that last year, and the governor championing it to reduce the size of state government, to have efficiency. So, have a 15 department cabinet. So when this first hit us and we knew what was, or thought we had an idea was coming. The governor called his cabinet together, and we were able to speak very frankly and very openly about the impacts of what was going to happen in the state, and then figure out how we're all going to work together. But what that has meant to me for a team within Commerce is now we're seeing where do we have the needs. Obviously, we're not being able to be as proactive and recruit new companies and new industries to the state with economic development, and we're not able to do some of the financing deals through our through ADFA. So we said let's shift our focus. The focus right now is trying to get funds out to those individuals who are unemployed through our UI system. So take any available hands that we have and just reassign them and ask them that for the time being, this is your job now. And I kind of shared that with everyone within our agency. I know you might have been hired to do one thing, but everybody's job's changed. My job has changed. All of our jobs have changed, and this is our focus now. We shifted, the governor allowed to set aside about $5 million from his quick action closing fund rather than to be closing some economic development deals. He wanted us to get that money out to businesses as quickly as we can because, as Senator Boozman mentioned, the SBA has a lot of funds and resources available, but they're kind of hit just like everyone else. They're a small agency trying to handle $350 billion of funds coming in and, probably triple that in the number of requests that they're processing. So that's going to take time. What we're able to do now is be very nimble and quick, take those funds from quick action closing and get them out in the form of small business loans up to $25,000 that we're offering at 0% interest, no payments for 12 months. And that's what we're hoping will be a bridge for some of these small businesses until they can get an SBA loan or that paycheck protection program and be available for it. So we've really had to shift gears, but going through transformation and having that ability to do that, we would not have been able to react and respond as quickly or as efficiently as we have right now had it been this time last year.
Well, and I want to give a shout out to Representative Andy Davis because I know he was instrumental in that, and I always want to recognize Mike, some things the administrative branch and the legislative branch work real well together on. It's iron sharpening iron, but I would not want to leave him out of the mix as far as the role that he played, as well as all other legislators, okay? I just always like to try to make sure everybody gets recognized to a fault sometimes. All right, so let's talk about, for just a few minutes, and then, because I want to save time for the infrastructure discussion, the state benefits harmonizing with the federal benefits as far as let's start off with the unemployment. You talked about the SBA a second ago, but what about the unemployment benefits that are coming down? Because there are things the state's doing, but now the federal's layered in on top of it. Y'all, I'm just going to step back and y'all talk about how that works and how that looks to Arkansans.
Be happy to. And Senator, if you don't mind, I'll dive right in and kind of go through where we are and the programs that are now available. So you have your traditional state unemployment. So if you are a W-2 employee and your employer has paid the unemployment tax, you are eligible for those state benefits, and that's going to vary anywhere from I think the lowest is $80 per week all the way up to $450, depending on how much was paid in the what your salary was the prior year. And those are funds that we're working on and getting those out currently and have been. What the CARES Act did was provide two new categories of unemployment insurance assistance. The first is the Pandemic Unemployment Compensation. This is what everyone refers to now as the PUC. This is an additional $600 that will go out every week to anyone who has filed for unemployment. So if you're one of those individuals and you've received, the $300 per week from the state, you'll also get an additional $600 benefit via the PUC that came out as part of the CARES Act weekly, and that will take you through the end of July is when that runs out. Or obviously, if you're able to, get rehired and start working again, that's when that will go away. So we have been able to rewrite the code in our system to intake that, and our first text for that went out, I think, Wednesday night of this week. So we were back paying a couple folks who had applied previously. And going forward, this will just be automatically added to your unemployment check that you receive from the state. You won't have to go back in and file again or do anything different. The second part of that is what's referred to as the Pandemic Unemployment Assistance, commonly referred to now as PUA. This is a completely new category that's never been covered before. So these are independent contractors, those who are self-employed, freelancers, the gig economy workers, think Uber, Lyft drivers. They have not paid into the state unemployment compensation trust fund, so they would not be eligible through the state. The federal government, through the CARES Act, has now allowed them to be eligible for an additional assistance from the federal government. We just received our guidance from the Federal Department of Labor last Sunday night on how this would be set up. The challenge we run into with this is that it now requires us to build a completely new system to be able to process and handle these claims. Obviously, these are going to be self-employed folks, and we're trying to verify their employment and their income via 1099. So what we've done is partnered with our Department of Finance Administration to build this system. We brought in a third party to help allow us to do this. The challenge is that building this completely from scratch, best figures we're looking at now is probably about 3 weeks to have this built and operational for folks to to receive that pandemic unemployment assistance. So it will come via the CARES Act. So unfortunately, there's going to be a little bit of a backlog on those folks who fall in that category. The good news is that we will be able to backdate to when they had the issue with their business related to COVID-19. So when they can demonstrate that they were impacted, we'll be able to go back and backdate that. So if it was, March 20th, and we have this set up by April 27th, we'll be able to go back in and cover that full month. So those folks will now be eligible for this pandemic unemployment assistance, as well as the additional pandemic unemployment compensation. We just have to build this new system and get it up and running. And this is not unique to Arkansas. Every state in the country is going through this as well. So we've been on calls with our counterparts from other states, trying to determine the best practices and how we can do it quicker. The national organization is working on it as well. So we're going to do everything we can to trim that timeline down. But I just ask those folks to bear with us, and we will make sure that those back payments are made.
And I just want to ask one question about this, and we're going to transition to Senator Boozman and then to start the conversation about infrastructure. That $600 that's being layered on by the federal as part of the CARES Act, when I do the math on it, that turns out to be $15 an hour. Is there an attempt, Senator Boozman, from some up there in Washington to try to use this as a means to move it toward $15 minimum wage, or is that just conspiracy theory, or can you weigh in on that?
No, that's conspiracy theory. It all goes back to the median wage of the country, and so no, that doesn't have anything to do with anything. And the reason that we did just layer on $600, as you say, or just layer on an amount, my understanding was, in visiting with the Department of Labor and Treasury, as we set this up, we wanted to be able to get these dollars out as quickly as possible. And so when you start interfacing with the traditional unemployment and then actually changing the different categories and this and that, and then interfacing that with the federal government, they said that could take up to a year to accomplish. And so, we wanted to get the dollars out as quickly as possible. That's why we just layered additional dollars on top. And Mike, the fact that you all are able to, do your software for the new benefit, to do that in a matter of weeks really is remarkable. And that just shows I think that shows the effort that under your leadership and the governor's leadership and then all of the hardworking folks that, as you said, regardless of what they've done in the past, are just jumping in and trying to solve problems. I think that says an awful lot for you all.
Hey, let's transition, because we've got about 5 minutes, gentlemen, about infrastructure, because I know President Trump's working on it. Senator Boozman, you mentioned a while ago, and one of the questions came in from the listener that might tie into this is what sort of support is in the CARES Act for cities and counties who are taking a revenue hit from reduced sales tax revenue. We got an important vote coming up this fall about the highway tax, depending on how the economy is going to have some bearing on that. Senator Boozman, in 3 minutes, can you talk about the infrastructure, what might be coming down the line?
Yes, in regard to your first question, the CARES Act, all of it so far, and again, we might be able to change this somewhat in the future, but all of it so far is geared on expenditure versus loss of income. And that's really where we're getting killed, is loss of income for our municipalities and counties and state government. Regarding infrastructure, which is certainly important, it looks like we might have a fair chance of actually getting an infrastructure package done. The two things that I've insisted that need to be in that are a reauthorization of the highway bill. That's 40% of the infrastructure dollars that will be going to Arkansas, which is so very important. That needs to be done in a timely fashion. And right now, with everything going on, timeliness might be difficult. So we've got to get that done. The other part of that is providing significant dollars for broadband. I'm a co-chair, one of the founders of the Rural Broadband Caucus, and I think that this is something certainly we've seen with all of the tele-networking, telehealth, all of these things that are coming about. Literally, as we speak, we simply have to get that infrastructure in place. Communities they're not going to be growing. Right now, you have to think in terms of not just roads and railroads and runways, but water infrastructure and broadband are certainly right at the top of the list of those things. So broadband, and then again, reauthorization of the Highway Trust Fund, those dollars coming to the state, and then whatever extra we can do to put in that direction.
All right. Mike, you got about 30, 45 seconds. Anything to chime in on that?
I appreciate the senator's leadership there. I think he's absolutely right. When we get through this health pandemic, we have an economic crisis on our hands, and how we respond as a state and as a country is going to determine whether this is a U-shaped, dip in the economy, or if we can make it a V and bounce back. And I think infrastructure spending is going to be a key part of that. And we want to get Arkansans and Americans back to work as quickly as we can. So pretty quickly, we're going to shift that focus and put it on the economic recovery side.
Very good. Senior Senator, you got the final word for about 30 seconds. Anything you want to share?
Well, the only thing I would say, again, thanks to the governor, thanks to people like Mike that are doing such a great job, and thanks to you for programs like this. I think one of the most vital things that we can do during this time of crisis is, communicate and share what's going on. So thank you for filling that void, although so many people have stepped up in that direction. So it's just going to take everybody working together. And then, as you mentioned earlier, this weekend we're, as we should be thinking about all the time, but certainly the celebration of Easter is such an important event.
All right. Thank you all for joining me today on the Kim Hammer Show. It's been a good one-on-one lesson for me. I hope the listeners have gotten a blessing out of it too. So as we leave off today, I just want to thank the sponsors of this program: Everett, Buick GMC, Baxley Phillips Mowdy, Edwards Food Stores throughout Central Arkansas and over in East Arkansas. You can join me tomorrow here at noon on this station and via Facebook. And the sermon I'll be presenting on behalf of my church, Saline Baptist in Tull, Arkansas, will be Hope When the World Says It's Hopeless. Let's celebrate Easter. In spite of all that's going on in the world, if you know Christ is your Savior, you've got hope. This is the Kim Hammer Show. Thank you.
.1 FM, The Answer.